I got a Patreon request from the Master of Gaming to review the horror movie Sorority Row. Released in 2009, this is a remake of the 1982 slasher film The House on Sorority Row, which was the directorial debut of Mark Rosman. For those unfamiliar with that name, he would later go on to direct movies like Life Size and A Cinderella Story, as well as multiple episodes of Lizzie McGuire. I just find that fascinating. Rosman did show his support for the production and received an executive producer credit. I've not seen the original movie, but I don't think viewing it would alter my opinion of the remake too much, as I really did not like this. One of my big issues with the movie was with the characters, many of whom were largely interchangeable. The sorority girls mostly blended together in my mind, to the point I did not even realize one of them was played by Tawny from Even Stevens. They are also frankly terrible people, so it was hard for me to generate much sympathy for them as the killer went on its spree. I recently said this in my review of Scream, but I find it's almost necessary for the characters in a slasher film to be ones you hope make it to the end, thus adding to the horror and tension of the situation. And Sorority Row struggles to do that, as the sorority girls have few redeeming qualities, with their stupid actions responsible for the death of their friend Megan. The prank that causes her death is so ridiculous and easily preventable. You would think one of them would keep an eye on her in case Megan's boyfriend decides to do something rash, which he of course does. Instead, they all look in the other direction to pretend search for rocks. What's wrong with you? On the subject of fraternities and sororities, it's interesting how movies in general make them seem completely unappealing. I was never in a fraternity, but most productions seem to depict them as nothing more than dens of debauchery where everyone just drinks, holds loud, obnoxious parties, and hurt each other with bizarre hazing rituals. Truth in television or highly exaggerated? I wouldn't know, but they certainly don't make them seem particularly inviting. The movie does not offer much of a commentary on sororities though, primarily using it as a setting for the carnage. I did not think the kills were directed with a lot of creativity. The killer mostly just throws and stabs people with a tire iron, while there is one gruesome death scene involving a bottle that showed some invention. The movie presents itself as a mystery over who the potential killer might be. I'm going to spoiler territory here, but I had a few guesses of who was the one responsible. However, when the revelation happened, I had pretty much no reaction. It turns out to be the boyfriend of one of the sorority girls who does not want their future together ruined. This was a character that made no impression on me before, so I did not feel much of anything. It just struck me as a flimsy motivation. There were three possible scenarios I considered as I was watching the movie and figuring out who it might be. One was that it was one of the sorority girls, mainly Jamie Chung's character, trying to get rid of anyone who might find out they killed Megan. After all, one kill happens in the shower room after someone overhears them talking and bringing it up. My second guess was that it was Megan's parents who discovered what happened and are plotting their revenge. And then in a similar vein, the third thought that crossed my mind was it was Megan's sister. Sure, any one of these might have felt really obvious, but they also make a lot more sense than the actual killer. Another thing I should mention is how much I really hated the filming and editing style of Sorority Row. There's a lot of fast cutting and way too many close-up shots of the actors' faces. There are shots in this that last a few seconds, and it's also an example of how the movie has trouble creating any sort of tension with the horror scenes. One of the few positives I'll say about this movie is Carrie Fisher's performance. Of course, it's difficult to go wrong when you put Carrie Fisher in your movie, and while she's not in it for long, she makes the most of her screen time, especially when she goes head-to-head with the killer and tries to put a stop to his reign of terror. Aside from that though, Sorority Row just presented a slasher film with little in the way of characters worth following or scenes that had that right level of tension and horror. Even as a schlocky B-movie, it largely underwhelms, but I found the most bothersome aspect to be just how horrible these people are. It's very much the sort of horror film that was popular to do after the success of Scream, what with the whole mystery surrounding who the killer is. The attempts at being something more campy also fall short. It does make me curious to maybe one day give the original film a watch and see how that one tackled its story and what they chose to do differently with the remake. Now if you've seen Sorority Row, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for the request, Master.